Hello, everyone. Welcome
Hi, guys.
to another episode of Take 47. This is episode 8 now.
And a very special one it is.
Yes, it is. This one is quite juicy. We have a very special guest today. He was our former drama director, our freshman and sophomore year of high school. This is Mr. Nate Ferreira.
Hi.
So I guess to kind of... Oh, I'm like really excited. So it's like, all right, so we gotta like paint the picture.
The tea is scalding hot here.
Yeah.
There's quite a backstory.
We had to paint a little bit of a picture. So, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, because it has been a decent amount of time since we have, had this happened.
That's for sure.
It was our sophomore year, our musical was supposed to be American Idiot, Green Day's American Idiot.
Must have been 2016, right?
Yes, that was that was like the beginning of 2016 towards the end of the year. We knew this for a little while. I remember we cleaned out the prop closets of Enfield High. Mm-hmm. I remember us getting all like the military stuff together that we needed.
We got rid of all of our props except for what we knew we needed for doing this show.
Right.
Everything else was cleared out, right?
Yeah. And that was because, not just because we were so into this one
right.
show. Because for anybody who doesn't know, the two high schools in town were being merged, and they were shutting down our facilities in order to start renovation to upgrade our school to house everybody in town.
Right. So we had this, plan. Every single person I knew during that period of drama was incredibly excited.
Oh yeah,
to do this
everyone
show.
was super psyched up.
Absolutely.
I don't know anyone. The only reason people were skeptical is because they didn't know what it was, which was me.
Yeah, I think at the time I was very surprised that Green Day even had a musical, but automatically I was like, I love Green Day, so let's do it. Hell yeah. Like, it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had that meeting where you, Nate, explained, kind of the bare basics of American Idiot and was like, we're going to go all out and stuff like that. And it
was clear that you already had a concept of the show.
Yes.
Of how you're going to run the show.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just, look at what we're going to do. It was, okay, look at all of the design aspects that I've already done. He basically gave us a presentation on...
Basically, yeah.
On all the pre-production work he'd already done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you guys didn't really know, maybe the kids at least 1 year older than you did, was it was part of my plan when I even got the job.
When you were hired?
When I was hired...
To the school system.
Yeah. I was hired because... I was hired because I was the best candidate for the job. I don't know I don't know every single reason that they thought I was.
Hashtag subtle brag.
Right.
I was going to say I was hired because of this plan, but I don't know that I was hired because of this plan.
Right.
But I probably was hired just because I had a plan.
And that's more than enough sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had been working with the group for years, but when it became necessary for them to have a director, I sort of reluctantly did it. I almost missed the window. They called me and were like, "Are you applying or not?" But yeah, the plan that I presented was that I thought that drama club in most public school systems is one of the few places that less structured learning can happen, and that that standardized tests do not affect really anything other than a couple rehearsals maybe being moved around, but they don't affect the way that the program is run. There isn't any testing, and because it is a club, as the school in recent years has gotten a theater program, mostly thanks to you guys, actually. That doesn't apply to the classes, of course. The classes are classes,
yes.
but there's not a lot of opportunity to get kids engaged in stuff just because that stuff is engaging.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to take advantage of that and provide a fun educational experience, and to talk about stuff that to start discussions about things that are tough discussions to have.
Yeah.
And there's great history teachers who work that in. It almost has to be worked in outside of the system now because how much schools rely on the federal funding that they get from their standardized testing results.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes great teachers to actually find a way to teach in the way that public school systems are run. That's all my opinion, but
Of course.
But I just
I think it's a
was
fair
like,
one, though.
we can do this. We can bring up issues. This group was around since the 50s and did incredibly challenging, controversial stuff, but it was always handled in a responsible way. And this was the plan I presented, and I said I want to do. I'm going to want to do a musical that is that nobody's ever really heard of, and then I want to do a musical that that actually I wanted to do 2 musicals that nobody had ever heard of, and I did. And then by saving the money from those 2 years of the musical production being lower budget, to really go all out and put on a highly produced, well produced production, and I, right from the start, I had said I wanted it to be American Idiot. Now, before we get into any of the details, you guys are gonna wanna hash out. I want to say that
Okay.
as you may have already figured out that I don't have a very high opinion of the effectiveness of the public school system in general in this country.
Right.
I'm sure we could have an episode dedicated just to those.
Right.
But what I really want to make sure you understand is that I believe that everybody who worked in the public school system that is involved in this show, that sometimes there might have been an adversarial relationship, but mostly everybody that has any part in this story is a very good person who definitely was always trying to do the best for the kids.
Right, of course.
And there was a lot of news stories coming out that it was not the case.
You've got to wonder what warrants that kind of a disclaimer.
Yeah, I mean, and that was like the big shocker when we found out that, hey, surprise, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Like my mom
It was quite outrageous.
Like I was mad. My mom was mad. She's like, "Why? What happened?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
That was
Like,
the big part for the
that
longest
was a
time,
big
is that
part.
no one knew
Yep.
Yeah.
really why it got shut down, and obviously that's why we're
Yeah.
here recording this episode today. But it stayed that way for 4 years, obviously enough just covered up by the school system, because I'm sure that they didn't want to have their tracks for the world to see, and covered up by the drama club because the show must go on.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know that covered up is the right way to put it. There certainly wasn't like a false story put out.
Right.
But it was just like, if we talk about it, it stays a problem. If we just do what we're gonna do, then it moves on. And the
Of course.
the point from the start was to make sure that from my end, as soon as I knew that this was not the show that was going to end up happening, all I cared about was making sure that a show did happen. And from that point on, I shut up about it.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it is absolutely the best course of action. Like we all know, the show must go on, and obviously we did proceed with a show. We ended up doing Little Shop of Horrors instead. Yeah. Well, you guys did Little Shop of Horrors instead.
And that show still came out phenomenal. If I do say so myself. But it was. I mean, there was still just such an air of disappointment.
Absolutely.
Within the club. And I just, like, where did it even begin? Like, was it trouble right from the beginning?
No.
Or
that's the crazy thing. As you may recall, there was some turnover in the administration of the school. The principal who actually was the person that made the decision to hire me was not the principal by the second year. Right. And what we're talking about is the third year.
Right.
All right. So it was foolish on my part to, I don't even know if foolish is the right word. It was just a stupid oversight on my part to not really go back in and sit down with the new principal and say, this is the plan that you might not even know about. I was just like, well, I got the job, they know my plan, cool, I'll move forward, and I didn't even think about it.
Right.
And I gotta say, the principal that we had was a fantastic supporter of everything that we were doing, and you know, to the point, like, people were calling when we did a murder mystery. There was like a sign out with a guy holding a knife. What was it?
It was called Murder for Dummies.
Murder for Dummies, and it was the Dummies book of the old. They're a different style now, but it used to be this cartoonish guy on the cover, sometimes holding something on these Dummies books. For
in this case, it was a knife.
Yeah,
and so it was just a rip-off of that book and those book covers, and he was holding a knife, and somebody called the school and claimed that it was a gun and was outraged. And it was funny because, like, it doesn't need to be a gun for you to have a problem. It's a bloody knife.
Exactly.
But the principal was like, well, it's a murder. It's a show about murder. Like,
right. We're not.
He's like,
covering up anything. It's wrong here.
So like he one or two people did like contact the school and want it taken down or just demand an explanation, and he was like, it's the poster for the show. It's like we trust how things are being run, and it's appropriate to what the show is, and you know, if you don't like it, don't go to the show. And
exactly.
And so, you know, that was the level of support, and I had done some work with other school systems before and after that, and I can tell you that I would say that it's almost a 50-50 shot whether you've got a principal that will be like, yeah, that's not a big deal, or, oh my God, we need to fire this person for even putting that out there. It's,
right.
So, you know, we had the support, so it's still confusing to me because I don't know the extent to which there was any kind of movement against us doing the show, but I do know that that someone, whoever actually brought it up, at one point about 6 months or so before, when it was really, we were leading up to it, there was talk about us doing the show. The principal did start giving me some questions, yes, emailing me or asking me to stop by the office and, you know, hey, is it true there's some drinking? Is it true there's some drug use? How much of this can we limit? And you know, there's I've heard there's a lot of swearing in this show, and And
interesting to see where he draws the line.
it's not even necessarily where he drew the line. It's just these are some concerns that have been raised, and what how are you handling it?
Right.
And
Fair enough.
And so at that point, I had agreed that let's see, the nice thing about doing plays is, although you really can't purposefully change a line without permission from whoever owns the rights to the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As I said many times in putting on our shows, like sometimes for whatever reason you need to change the stage directions.
Right.
Right. Not every space is the same.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
going to be differences in sets,
Yep.
and you really just can't account
Yep.
for all the stage directions to match up all the time.
Right.
That's just naive.
Right. So I've always made it a habit, if I have any input, whether or not I'm the director, if I have any input on how to do shows, I have always made it a habit to completely ignore. Like I read it, I get a picture in my mind for what they're going for, but like,
And then you take a left turn.
yeah, and then you put on your own show.
Exactly.
So I did want to minimize the swearing. Same kind of thing we have seen. Probably, I'm sure you both have seen in online in the last few weeks about how they took a couple fucks out of. Am I ruining your YouTube?
No,
swearing.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
But they took a couple fucks out of Hamilton.
Right.
And the one they ended up with was not the one I would have kept. But they did that to ensure that they weren't going to have an R rating on something,
Right.
on a show that they wanted as many people as possible to see.
Right.
It was
And
pretty unintrusive.
yeah, and so I knew I was going to have to do that kind of thing for what we were doing. So I had sent out some, I had sent out an email to
Music Theater International.
yes, I was like, what's MTI stand for again?
The publishing company for American Idiot.
Yes. I don't know if they still are, actually. The shows get shifted around all the time, but
at the time.
but I'm sure they are, actually. But yeah, I had sent some stuff to MTI, just like, hey, can we change these words to these words? And because at the time there was not a school edition, all right? So, we were waiting to hear back for confirmation on that. I think I got some confirmation already before we even, announced the show officially, that a few swears could change. And they did tell me, like, hey, if you want to wait a couple of years, we have a school edition coming out. And I was like,
That has the pre...
yeah, it's
swears
already pre-edited totally the way that your school wants. And
really milquetoast.
Yeah, it doesn't even sound it does not sound appealing at all.
Take all the edge out of edgy.
That's right.
So, the principal worked with me on really, we went back and forth on, like, okay, yes, we don't have to show anybody shooting heroin up on stage.
Right.
Like, we don't have to instruct the students how to do heroin. Like, that's not
That's a
why
cause
I
I
want to
can get behind.
Yeah.
And then there was a point where it was like, well, can we just eliminate all drinking on stage? Like, we can maybe you can have some beer bottles on the set, but can we not see any drinking? And I'm like, that one bothers me only because there has been drinking in our shows in almost every show.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
It's so common to see...
Well, we had it in Murder for Dummies.
We had it in Murder for
times
Dummies.
We had
I
drinking
mean,
scenes.
any Western they make for school.
Honestly,
just
I
has a
had
bar.
less drinking in any of my shows than almost every other show that had been done prior to me being the director for like the previous 4 years, including, I think we did Bye Bye Birdie, and just a choice that a kid made that was not accepted by the director. Just a kid or maybe their parents, I don't know, somebody came up with this idea of like, your character should should just pull a flask out of their pocket and drink. And like
Oh,
that happened
man.
like starting opening night and without like the director
That's a
acknowledging
scandal
it.
right there.
So like yeah, I that was when it was starting to be to get to be a problem.
Right.
But yeah, as you said, we officially like announced. We had a meeting to go over it. I had a meeting the year before you guys got to the school, to tell the kids that were there, like, hey, I know that normally, like what you've seen this past year with me as director, and what many of you experienced in previous years, the kids really have a say in what show we do. To the point that, like, aside from not being able to do the rights or the director really saying we can't do that, something like Hairspray, where like
we don't have the cast for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aside from that, it's like you give us the ideas, we'll put in some ideas, and then we'll, we actually had the club voting on what shows to do at every production, and I said 2 years from now, this is the show we're going to do. And I don't think anybody's going to object to it, but I want you to know I am changing how we operate for that one thing, because this is something I'm building up to, and it's very important. Yeah. And I made sure to remind people about that. And as we just said, we had the meeting just before we would have started, and explained it all. And auditions are on this day. And
we didn't even get that far.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't get to the auditions.
But we had them announced.
We had them announced.
We
had posters were up.
Yeah.
And that was the point at which every teacher in the school was suddenly aware of this. And a bunch of kids who maybe knew Green Day and American Idiot but would never have considered joining Drama Club now knew that was the show we were going to do. And so there was a lot more talking.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It is. Like, if we actually went through with the show, I wholeheartedly believe we would have a few sold out shows. Honestly.
Yeah.
Of course.
It would absolutely be incredibly popular. We were excited in drama, and then, like you said, when we released the posters, it's a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, Nate's talking about build-up. And,
yeah.
And, like, let's really not let it be downplayed here. He wasn't just, like, casually mentioning to people, like, oh, I will be doing American Idiot. Like, people got excited when he talked about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
People were ready for it to happen. At least the students were.
Yeah.
Yes.
Clearly, there was some differences of opinion.
Yeah. Now, it might have only been one person. I don't know. But somebody at some point talked to someone important enough that that I got called to the principal's office.
Oh my gosh! You got called to the principal's office.
No, he called me on the phone, I think. Might have been an email. Don't really recall. But he said, hey, can you come down so we can really go over all these, there's some concerns, and we really, I still need to know, like, that this is being changed enough.
He makes it sound like you were keeping the edits that you were making a secret.
It's more like principals don't normally pay much attention to what the Drama Club is doing.
Right.
And suddenly he had to.
Yeah.
And he already was more than other principals I knew. Like, already was aware and involved and supportive and all that. Point is, I showed up with my binder that had all, like, I had it very well organized to show this is what it says to do, this is what we are doing, here's the the censoring of swears that I've requested that I fully expect to be allowed, and and here's you guys know you can have somebody say a line 20 different ways, and the line means 20 different things.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, a simple change of
Yeah.
emphasis can change the
Yeah.
meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So I had notes about like this is how we're gonna sort of minimize this impact you're worried about. Whether or not that all would have really lasted through the performance, I don't know. But I had notes, and I was prepared if I had to like go in front of the superintendent or the school board or whoever really was demanding to know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's really remarkable. I feel like you don't see a lot of instructors have that level of preparedness in public school systems.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we know, like, it was this big thing that was planned, and everyone was aware of it, and we got so close. So,
Yeah.
like, absolutely, I full-heartedly
I just
expect
mean
it
that,
to be
like,
planned.
it surprises me even more to know that they canceled it when it was so airtight.
Well,
as you're explaining.
Well, let me tell you what happened, because this is
all right.
the moment.
All right.
This is the moment, and this is why everything is on me.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go, the untold truth.
I
right?
walked into his office with the binder, and he was visibly shaking. Whether he had just gotten another call or what, and he was like, I just looked at him and I was like, we're not doing this show, are we? And he's like, I don't see a way that it's going to happen. And I said, okay.
Sounds
and
like he's breaking up with you.
I didn't even give him the binder.
Oh, man.
I didn't go over anything. I just was like, I just said, okay, tell me what you can tell me. And he just said, there's, he said, there's been some calls, and there's a lot of concerns, and he said, my fear is that we can fight and fight and fight and maybe win, but the kids you're working with right now probably just won't have a show. Like the fight won't be resolved in time for you to have your musical this year.
Yeah.
Right, so it's not like we wouldn't even reap any of the rewards
Right.
No.
from you fighting.
Right. And this is something that it's almost a dirty little secret of every school system I've worked with for their theater program. And to be clear, I usually am not director. I usually am just like the guy that goes in and helps make sure that their lights and their sound work.
Right.
But the dirty little secret is the person directing the drama club is almost never a teacher, because teachers don't want to double their work day for a couple $1,000s extra a year.
Yeah.
It's somebody who is passionate about theater, has the time, and
Isn't in it for the money.
isn't in it for the money. Yes, and I can list a whole other set of negative qualities that I think have applied to most directors I've seen at high school level, but I'm not going to do that. The
TGB burn book.
Right.
The dirty little secret is those people are under contracts on a semester by semester basis.
Right.
So here's what I knew that maybe the principal didn't even think about. I wasn't union. I'm not in the teachers union. Nobody's going to step up and defend me.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we did fight, it would have been a loss no matter what.
Right.
We virtually guaranteed that musical wouldn't have happened, and there wouldn't have been a show at all that year. And then the following year, I would definitely not have been the director or even involved in any way. So
how did you somehow turn that into us still having a show come musical season?
I said, give me a day to think about this. And I thought about all the stuff that I wanted to talk about. And I found a show that got most of the topics of discussion covered. Because they didn't like drug use. They didn't like violent imagery. But for some reason, if you say a name that people recognize, it just never gets questioned. So I did Little Shop of Horrors, where there is drug use, there is murder, there is mutilation, there is...
and it's all laughed at. And,
it is.
Yes,
absolutely.
And very much on display.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And my intent was certainly to talk about some of these things. With American Idiot, although a major theme is the whole punk rock ethos and Rage Against the Machine, not the band,
right?
the concept.
Yes.
But that wasn't so much what I had wanted to get into. It just was a thing that would have been unavoidable to discuss.
Because that's Green Day.
Yes.
Exactly. That's exactly Green Day.
So, but so the main thing I wanted to do was open up discussion surrounding drug abuse, because you guys are only ever lectured, usually, if you hear anything about that in school.
Lectured poorly, let's be clear.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So my intent all along with any show that involved drug abuse was to just make space for the questions, and if it got serious enough, work with the school to have somebody that they would approve of to really address a lot of these questions. But the more important thing was, I know that there's always kids that know somebody that's developing some kind of problem, and sometimes you can help a kid to at least avoid getting caught up in that if they just know that they can talk about it because you're not so scared of the subject.
Exactly.
That's all I ever wanted to do with the drama club. Not specifically about drugs, but about anything. I just wanted that to have myself and the other team members be able to talk about things within the framework of our productions, and to have the kids feel free that they could talk about things that we could then direct them to someone more knowledgeable that was within the system, that they wouldn't necessarily have gone directly to themselves.
Do you feel like you were able to accomplish?
I know I was able to accomplish that a lot.
Well, I mean, in the long run, that's better than putting on one great show.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to put on some great shows anyway. But but we did.
We did. It is truly phenomenal how I mean, every student, every faculty member buckled down and worked together to crank out Little Shop of Horrors, and it was amazing.
And I want to remind you guys about the showcase we did at the
is it the American Legion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, what? League of Nations was stuck in my head.
Oh my goodness, that's not it. You know, the Connecticut League of Nations.
Of course.
So yeah, at the American Legion, we did a third show. We did straight play in the beginning of the year, musical at the end of the year, and we did a third show in the middle.
I believe we called it short acts.
Short acts, yes.
Yep.
And I mean, we had a student sit and monologue to the audience about cutting herself. And
didn't we also have one about sexual assault or domestic violence?
We had one. Yes, we had.
There were some pretty heavy acts.
Yeah, and we were celebrated for it, and some of the school board members were at it, and were like, "This is amazing. Why aren't we doing more of this?" And I'm like, "Oh, you wait." And
lo and behold, when you tried to do more of it, they didn't have your back nearly as much.
Yeah. But, the domestic abuse thing was written entirely by the students.
I remember watching them workshop it, improv through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
that's how I learned the lesson that improv doesn't always have to be funny.
Yes. Yep. That was a major thing for me. But, and to be clear, the student who talked about cutting herself was actually, it was not original.
That was like a pre-written monologue that she had memorized?
My assistant director I don't think he was my assistant director at that time, but whether or not he was. A teacher at the school who was helping with the stuff he came to me and was like, "Hey, can you read these 2 pages from this book I like? Because I think we should do this." And I was like, "Yeah, who do you have in mind?" And he told me, and we did it, and it was phenomenal. And that was another instance where we went to the administration and said, "This is some heavy stuff, but we're gonna do it." And they were like, "Cool. Like, as long as she doesn't actually do it in front of us, if you are confident that she can handle it and that the audience will appreciate it and all that, then go for it." So it's interesting to open a catered dinner with a monologue about cutting yourself, but we did it, and
but that pasta was delicious.
It was. The pasta was fantastic. I remember the pasta being really good.
But what made it all really, what made it big, what turned it into the 2 worst weeks of my life, was that the email that I sent out to explain to everyone that we're going to have to change course was screenshotted and posted on Twitter, and they tagged Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day, and it actually got to the point where he went on Instagram and shared it and just railed against the school board, which as far as I know, none of the school board members had any idea. They decide the budget. They don't examine what the drama club
one day they
is
just
doing.
woke up and Billy Joe Armstrong was angry at them.
Oh man!
No, but it got turned into an issue of censorship, right?
Yes.
All of a sudden, the Enfield School Board was being accused.
Enfield School Board was stifling the voices of the students, and really, it was I decided not to do a show that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
because it was clearly causing so much turmoil in the administration.
Yes. And because there was no decision. It was either do the show or either don't do the show or try to do the show and don't do the show. Those were the options on the table. And so whether or not I could have just not believed that it would have come to that, and if I could have just fought it, I don't know. Maybe I could have pushed it through, and not had a fight. Maybe it would have just been let's just get rid of the guy afterward, but let him go ahead and hang himself.
Jeez.
Do you think if you did show the principal the binder that everything may have changed? Have you ever thought of like a what if?
No, because here's the point. Here's the problem with that. At that point, he wasn't officially the principal.
He was still interim.
He was the interim principal, and and he could have I honestly I just liked the guy so much because he has always been very positive, had this great energy, and as I said, was very supportive of us. And I whatever tiny part of me wanted to fight was just like, I would be ruining his career, which I don't know that that's not exactly the most noble reason to not do a show, but it was a fact. Like he was in the same position as me, where it's like I believe that he was in the same position as me, where he was being told, or at least his understanding was, well, you can fight for this and not be here next year, or you can squash this. And he never had to. I made that decision because I had been planning 10 steps ahead since I got the job, and I was suddenly in a position where I was like, oh, the next 9 steps I have, they're not happening anyway. So then I was just like trying to just look 10 steps ahead, and I just saw for him disaster, and for me disaster, and for the kids not having a show at all, and it was not great. it was an untenable situation. So yeah, the interesting thing then was, of course, once stuff hits the news, the school system chooses a spokesperson to deal with this, and everyone else needs to shut up.
This is the first time we're hearing this story.
Yeah, 100%.
Like the true uncut version of this story.
Yeah,
you were very good. You, Nate, were very good at concealing. I don't want to say it was like a malicious thing, but you didn't tell the students really.
Oh no!
What went on?
No, because it would only, all it would do is it would just muddy the waters. It wouldn't help anything.
Right.
I can't say this for sure, but I really think that it gave us a common enemy and just kind of made the club a little bit stronger, just because we were all kind of pissed that the one thing we were looking forward to was canceled.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in a way, you not giving us a reason was, I don't want to say beneficial, but it had unforeseen outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew as soon as I saw that there was national. I found out about Billy Joe Armstrong making this national news momentarily, because I was personally getting emails and phone calls from newspapers and TV stations and radio stations, and
You're kidding.
and so I was like, I hope the school system knows about this already, but maybe they don't. And meanwhile, they're sitting there is Nate doing this? Is he the one that made this happen?
You were reaching out to these guys?
Yeah.
I got a scoop for you.
Because I called the principal, and again, I might be wrong. It might have been an email. I contacted the principal and said, "Hey, I just found out about this. You should probably know about it. Is there anything I need to do?" And then I knew that what would come back is let us handle it. So I didn't wait for an answer. I started responding to
the news networks?
Yes. I just emailed a couple radio stations, and I jumped on the grenade myself. I said, Mr. Armstrong doesn't know what he's talking about. This was a show that was always, the decision was mine, and the decision not to do it was mine, and everything everything is on me. And so I just put that out, and then I got a call back from the principal, and I think it was the principal, might not have been. Somebody from the school system called me back and was like, "Thank you for letting us know about this. We were aware. We're glad to know that it seems that we're all on the same team here." And
is that the reason that you did it? Like, did you want the school system to think, oh, like, at least Nate, at least this guy's on our side here? Or
No.
Did you have a different motivation in mind?
My motivation, again, was making sure you guys had a show.
Right.
Because if I did stay silent, then I know what the school system would say. This is not censorship. This decision was made. It was a group decision. This is not as big a deal as it's being made out to be. And it would just look the way that it did look to you guys, that like the school system's the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And if it got to be a bigger issue, if there was this big, if there was some sort of movement to bring back the show or whatever, same thing. Okay, how about no drama club for a while? So So I was like,
step between
yeah,
quite the hawk.
Rocking a hard place.
So I knew, like I said, I was planning 10 steps ahead from the moment I got this job, and that did not stop just because I was incredibly unhappy in the moment.
Right.
When I started getting contacted by news organizations, I was like, okay, I can just tell the truth and make the school system not look as bad, and maybe settle down some people, or I can keep my mouth shut and hope that the school system would, for once, miraculously not make things worse.
Yeah.
with talking to the news.
Just hope they defuse the situation. Yeah.
And I was like, if I get fired over this, or asked to step down, or however they want to put it, like that is a better outcome than no show or no club. And so I just went ahead, like I said, I just threw myself on the grenade, and then I did hear back from the school system, and they said, hey, just so you know, don't talk about it, we're going to handle it. And I was like, oops, I already did. But I won't now that you've officially told me not to talk to anybody. I won't talk to anybody anymore. So, it got out there. It was in Rolling Stone, or at least on their website.
Ooh, big man in Rolling Stone.
right.
And in, everybody looking for a stupid, funny story for every news outlet all across the country, and then it was forgotten about like the next day, as these things are, except for us. And that's pretty much it.
Can I ask, like, did this sour your relationship with the drama club, and like, did it play a factor in you wanting to dedicate less of your time to it, or did it like reinvigorate you and I don't know, how did you feel afterwards?
Well, first of all, it immediately, like, once I got through the 2 weeks or so of turmoil, of nobody wanted to do anything other than talk about American Idiot.
Right.
And I was trying to get another show going. Once I got through that, I was just, I was tired, and one or two of the people that I was hoping to get involved to help us put on the show were no longer involved, but also some people that I I thought weren't going to be involved because we were doing American Idiot did end up being involved. And so I was just tired and not performing at my best.
No, because you were functioning as every single designer plus the director.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But
plus the make sure the construction workers don't throw out our set guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that was the beginning of the year was our entire set thrown out a week before we had to perform, and also we couldn't use the space we were supposed to.
Yep.
And that just a reminder again, all of that was going on was construction outside of half the classrooms and all of the administrators' offices and us being shuffled around. So nobody was at their best for this thing.
Absolutely not.
And so it did play a part in me deciding that I wasn't going to fight to remain the director when the schools combined. But I honestly, I don't think I really, since the beginning of that school year, I already was kind of like, there's some great people at each school, and if I was in the position of the directors at the other high school of, we've been here for like 15 years running this, and this guy's been here for 2 or 3 years, and he's the laughing stock of
what a title.
Yeah. Jeez.
So, I knew if I was in their position, I wouldn't want to continue working with the group if they were told, like, yeah, you're gonna have to work under this guy that is, a generation behind you in experience. That I wouldn't want to do it. And I was like, I think we can make a really good team. And if I'm not the guy in charge, that might be the only way we are a team. So
it really baffles me how many politics there are involved with
it's
a
ridiculous.
high school level drama club.
Yeah.
That was genuinely an aspect of the club that I was just blissfully unaware of.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's even more amazing that we were completely oblivious.
Yeah,
had no idea.
Because hearing this story, I'm like, how the heck did you get anything done?
Yeah. Honestly.
But understand, like, as I just explained it to you, maybe it sounded like a heavy decision. Like, for me, it was always like it was simple. Like,
what was
the decision for me not to want to even fight to stay the director.
You just always knew that answer?
I probably the first year or two I was like, I'm gonna prove what I can do, and I'm gonna make them beg me to stay the director.
Right.
And that was gone long ago by the time we got to this decision of whether to do the show.
Yeah.
The effect it had on me was simply like, it was easier for me to make that call, and honestly, I am still recovering from the stress of that particular show, and so I would not have been a good director. But yeah, the politics.
Thank you so much for talking with us about it then.
No, yeah, I was very, very, very excited to hear that you were willing to share this, because I mean, we've had, like, how many different stories were we told, during this whole thing?
I mean, any rumor under the sun was fair game.
Like,
when you don't have an answer, any answer is better.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Every rumor in our minds was factual, so we're automatically like, "Oh, yes, it is this," and then we are mad at this, and then it's like the rumor of the week, like, "Oh, why did this happen? Oh, this happened. Okay," but like knowing.
Well, we didn't let it die either. I mean, I know that you took your took a show break for Little Shop of Horrors, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure even you knew that, like, all the while, people were still talking about, like, no, American Idiot's still gonna happen. Like, we're still gonna find a way to do it. People were still holding on to any last bit of hope that we could pull off some kind of miracle.
Yeah, but even years later, like, every now and then, the people who were in Enfield High, at least, before, you know, they did that whole dramatic shift or whatever, were like, hey, remember American Idiot? You know, occasionally drop a little bit of a subtle name drop and things like that.
It is.
Yeah, because it's still like it's still kind of a wound. Yeah, like there's still just that part of me that like just really, really, really wanted to do American Idiot. Like,
because everyone knows that it would have been great.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If anyone that you talk to in this town, if they know, then they know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really just that kind of a niche thing. Like, if you knew the people involved and you knew what we were capable of, then you knew that it was a shoo-in.
Yep.
But also, if you only saw Radio Enfield, where we didn't have
Our previous show.
Yeah, where we didn't have a set because it was thrown out the week before. You didn't know where we were performing because we only found out about a week before that we weren't going to be allowed.
I might not have had faith in us either after that.
Yeah, and also no, and my horrible decision to allow the parts of Radio Enfield that were dramatic readings of War of the Worlds. My horrible decision to just let people read from the script instead of forcing them to memorize, and that forcing people to memorize is forcing them to act at the high school level. If you still have your nose in a book, you're not acting. And I was too inexperienced to realize that until we performed. And then
it was very clear.
We had lots of hits, but we also had some misses, and
that's okay.
No, absolutely,
it's okay. But like, it was. I know American Idiot would have been fun.
Yeah.
I don't blame anybody for thinking it would have been an absolute train wreck.
Right.
But you know,
But we should have gotten the chance to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
I know. It still would have been a very nice, like, triumphant huzzah at the end of it. Like, our curtain call would at the same time be kind of like a, we told you so. And it would have been really, really satisfying to pull it off.
On the bright side, though, this hasn't completely discouraged you in the world of theatrics totally, yes? That you're still working in the field?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When theater happens again.
Yeah,
sure.
Whenever.
We are in a bit of a hiatus.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, as you know, I'm facility manager for the Opera House Players here in town, which is a community theater group that's on the verge of being a regional theater group, and we're working with a lot of other schools, including Enfield still, and helping them to make sure their productions are as good as they can be, and doing some podcasts and stuff. So yeah, I'm not fully discouraged, and fortunately, seems neither are you guys.
I guess my last question would be: Is there still like a part of you, you know, might not even for high school productions, of course, but if you wanted to try and tackle this again,
mm-hmm.
would you want to in general?
I would, yeah. And I would even want to do it at the high school level.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
You would go back for...
Yeah, because you got to understand, all aspects of, like, everything that was going on was working against this show at that point.
Right.
Any other year, this would probably not have been an issue. It was just
the perfect storm.
Yes, it really was. And especially, I haven't looked lately. I kind of avoid it, but the time that has gone by since would indicate to me that their school edition is available now.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
my
true.
gosh.
That
You're
is
right.
true.
I haven't even thought to look. I would be very curious to read those scripts side by side. I'd be
yeah.
even more curious to read the original script, their school edition, and
then
your
the
revised
binder,
edition.
yes. No, that would be very interesting.
But yeah, I would absolutely be interested in doing it again. The funny thing is, the main reason I wouldn't want to do it is because it's not that great a show in my opinion. Like it's good. Mm-hmm. It deserved to get to Broadway.
Right.
But there's 100 other shows I would really want to do first if I was just choosing to work on shows. That one just fit the discussions I wanted to open up.
Yeah.
And seemed like a really cool thing that the kids would like.
Yeah.
Well, Billy Joe, if you're listening to this, because it seems that you have eyes and ears everywhere,
Right?
come do the show with us.
Yeah. Yep, just do it with us.
Reprise your role, please.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, maybe just give us some money, but,
Oh,
I'll take whatever I can get.
of course, thank you so much, Nate, for having or sharing this opportunity to tell.
Very insightful.
Absolutely, it's incredibly insightful. A story that we've wanted. It played such a big part in our high school, time, and it was really nice to.
No, it was the biggest scandal in.
I mean, yeah.
In
honestly,
our high
that
school
was
careers.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to get some clarity. Yeah, it's like a nice clear vision of what actually went down, and it's really, really good. And I thank you very much for wanting to go on to our little podcast here and explain exactly what went down. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to always tune in every Tuesday for another episode of Take 47. Peace out, guys.
Bye.